certainly this year, that I ask you the question you have become accustomed to hearing that kicks us off every Tuesday morning. Who thinks they know what that question is?
How do you feel?
Well then, how do you feel?
Terrific!
Oh, with some feeling, how do you feel?
Terrific!
Ooh, that's the spirit. That is the spirit. Now, how many were willing to get up this morning and give some thought to Mr. Joe Girard's method of getting himself enthusiastic and getting started for the day? How many gave some thought to that? And what was that thought, Mark? Did anybody give themselves the Joe Girard pep talk this morning?
Yes.
Should we do it?
Yes.
Here we go.
I feel good. I feel great. Look out, world. I'm coming out one more time.
Yeah. Now remember, when Mr. Tocco's gone, there's only going to be one person in your life to decide whether or not you want to get up in the morning and face your world with enthusiasm, with excitement, and with appreciation. And who is that person?
Yourself.
Who is the most important person in your life?
Yourself.
That is you. That's correct. And if you use the single greatest power you possess, which is the power to
Choose.
everybody together,
Choose.
the power to choose, then you will decide in the morning or any time of the day if you choose to use your positive energies. And the most important reason Mr. Tocco was here was to encourage you to seek what the Greeks call, what is the word?
Arrangement.
Oh, with some feeling. Now, this is our last time together. The word is
Arrangement.
which is to become the best
Possible you compared to no one else.
compared to absolutely no one else. The best possible you compared to no one else. Your destiny, then, my young friends, your destiny, D for destiny, because this is the formula, equals your choice, the greatest power, times your willingness to use the 5 great success principles, which we've talked about for the last 5 weeks. Added to knowledge, love, and service to other people. The knowledge you're getting here at school, the love you're getting from your families at home, and from your teachers, and the service that you give to each other by respect and appreciation. You guessed it. Terrific. Reason for being here, all right then. Number 1 power, the power to choose. Let's see if we remember the statement of wisdom, because nothing happens. Nothing happens in our lives until we fulfill the conditions of the statement of wisdom. All of our life, where we're at today, where we'll be when we're 25, when you get to Mr. Tocco's age, thereabouts, and 33, Mrs. Two-Tag's age, and where we'll be very much determined by our process of using the statement of wisdom. So here you go. Let's see if we remember it. First comes the thought, which is followed by a word that leads to an action, that forms a habit, that develops a character, that results in a destiny. Give yourself some appreciation. Just about everyone is able to say that this morning. Fantastic. That is fantastic. You see, I was telling my guests earlier that this is the best 4th grade class I've ever had the privilege to work with. But it doesn't surprise me, because right here out of Warren come some of the great people on this planet. Remember when I told you about my dog, Duchess? Well, what did she do? She ate my baseball glove. Well, the day that I was looking for my glove, I was so excited because I was going to get a chance to play ball with one of my very best friends who lived right next door to me. And his name is Don Whitaker. And guess what? When I told him that I was coming here to our old elementary school, he got so excited. He said, "Do you think I could come and see those young people and be in the school again?" I said, "Absolutely." Let's welcome Don Whitaker. Would you please stand? And I was talking to my friend Carol Teegarden a couple weeks ago, who was with the Detroit Free Press, and invited her, but she was busy. But she sent a good friend who loves young people. Butch, would you please stand up? Let's welcome Butch this morning. Who remembers who Dr. Albert Schweitzer was? Who was he? Dr. Albert Schweitzer, who was he? Oh, that's Joe Schweitzer. Who was Dr. Schweitzer?
He was a famous doctor.
He was a famous doctor. He was a famous humanitarian. And a humanitarian is a person who really, really cares a lot about people. They seem to care more about people than they care about themselves. And they're willing to do anything, go anywhere, at any length and cost to help and serve mankind. And it's a great contribution to the planet because it is through great humanitarians that the world goes forward. Christ was a great humanitarian. There are many, many great humanitarians on our planet. But Dr. Albert Schweitzer was noted for something very powerful that he said. And that was, he said, the most important thing young people can learn to do for themselves is, what's the word?
Think for yourself.
Together?
Think for yourself.
To learn how to think for yourself. To look around at your world. To look at where you're at. To look at what you've learned. To look at what you want to learn. To look at people in your life, adults, young people, and see the differences in people. Not that you're better, not that you're worse, not that you're smarter, not that you're less intelligent, but see the differences. And ask yourself, what can I learn? What do I want to do? Where do I want to go? How do I get there? How do I get there? We get there by thinking today, and we get there by thinking about tomorrow. I'd like to share a story with you about a gentleman by the name of Albert Nobel. Albert Nobel was a Swedish industrialist. And he was a famous man in his country. He was a very wealthy man because he had invented dynamite. And his brother passed away. And the local newspapers got the story, but they got the person wrong. They thought that Alfred Nobel had died. And so in the obituaries, someone wrote about Alfred Nobel, and they said he was the man who invented a chemical that caused people's death. That he was a man of destruction and death. But he wasn't dead. It was his brother who had died. It was a simple mistake. But he was horrified at the thought that he almost went down in history as being a man known for death and destruction. So he decided, very shortly after that, that he did not want to be known for something negative. That he wanted to be known for something positive and wonderful. So you know what he did? He created a fund called the Nobel Fund for Chemistry, Inventions of Various Creativity, and the Nobel Peace Prize. It's a famous, famous prize that great men around the world and women receive every year. In the last 3 years, we've had Mikhail Gorbachev, we've had Lech Walesa, the president of Poland. All know who Gorbachev is, don't they? Who is Mikhail Gorbachev? Anyone? Who is he?
The president of Russia.
That's right, the leader of Russia. Who knows who Lech Walesa is? Anyone? Lech Walesa, he is also from Europe. Or he is from Europe. Anybody know? He's the president of Poland. And earlier it was a gentleman by the name of Oscar Arias from Costa Rica. But these are people who have given greatly to peace around the world. Anyway, I ask you, how would you like to be remembered when your life is over? What would you like to have them say about you? And I know it's a little bit early to be thinking about that. I hope that's something that's not something you're going to dwell on. But in 25 years, or in 50 years, or in 70 years, when something happens, and surely life is a progression, it's a process. We're all born and we all pass on another experience. We don't know exactly what happens because nobody's been able to come back and tell us, but we think there's some pretty wonderful things that happen afterward. How would you like the world to remember you? How they will remember you is your decision. Because with this success formula, you and God are the co-creators of your life by using the success principles. My young friends, my young Harding Bulldogs, you are now today about to graduate from a program whose content is only known by 3% of Americans in this country. What is 3%? That is 3 out of every 100 know about the success formula. You have been studying what adults study. You have been studying what many adults don't know. You've been studying a powerful set of principles that you have written down, that you can use them in the 4th grade, the 5th grade, through junior high and through high school. And the first step in our 5-step formula we talked about, we use the word enthusiasm. But the word that is complementary to that is this word. It is desire. For us to succeed in our lives, we must have a burning desire. That's a feeling down inside that says, I want to, I can, and I will. I want to learn. I want to gain knowledge, because it is knowledge that separates us from other people. In life, we are paid in the real world for what we know. I'd like to share a story with you about burning desire. There was a gentleman driving down a highway in Texas, and he was very tired. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and he was driving, and he came to a curve in the road, and he went around the curve where there were double yellow lines. But his car swerved across the yellow lines. Unfortunately for him, coming the other direction was a Greyhound bus. Suddenly, the 2 vehicles met head-on. Boom! And his car was thrown into the air and rolled several times, and he was crushed and pinned in the car. And they had to come and actually cut him out with acetylene torches. He was unconscious. They rushed him to the hospital, where he was unconscious still. But after 3 days, when he regained consciousness, they said to him, "Sir, we have some good news, we have some bad news. The good news is, well, you're very lucky to be alive, but the bad news is, you will never walk again." Now, he looked up at the doctors, and he said, "But I must walk again. I make my living walking." Now, it was 2 weeks after that he was taken to the therapy room of that hospital on his own request, by his own request, in a wheelchair. And a therapy room has parallel bars. You've seen them in the gyms, where you can pull yourself up. Well, there was a nurse on either side so he wouldn't fall, because they had to cut some things and sew some things, and his legs were horribly damaged and swollen. And he pulled himself up on the parallel bars, and he looked down at his mangled legs, and a little voice on one shoulder, that pessimistic voice, you know, that negative voice we talked about, said to him, "Would you please sit down? Are you crazy? The best doctors have said you will never walk again. Now sit down before you make a fool out of yourself." But he stood there, holding on to these parallel bars with all of his might. And another little voice on the other shoulder that was that optimistic side, that positive side. Remember the optimistic boy who was always excited and enthusiastic? Believing good things could happen? That little voice said, "You know that you can do anything that you have got the desire to do." And he looked down at his mangled legs, and he said, "Move!" But nothing happened. He stood there, and his arms began to tremble because he was getting tired. And the perspiration broke out on his face, and he was beginning to sweat. When he looked back at his legs, and a second time he said to his legs, "Move!" But nothing happened. But it was after 2 minutes that one leg actually moved, almost imperceptibly. And it was after that that Ben Hogan won the United States Golf Open Championship walking on 2 legs that were so swollen they were bursting the seams of his golf pants. Yes. A person with burning desire. My young friends, you and I can generate just a small percentage of that kind of desire to learn, to help our moms and dads to get along with each other, keep thinking about the future and ways that we can contribute and participate. There is nothing that you can't do if you have the power of burning desire. Now, I have an example. Mr. Tocco has his own example of burning desire. By the time I was 21, I was already $7,500 in debt. I had an old car. It was an old Pontiac, and the back end was caved in from one accident, and the left rear quarter panel was caved in from another accident. And I was a college dropout. I was in half of the class that made the top half possible. And I had no job at that time. I had been let go. I was living with my parents. And one day I was leaving the house, and my dad was drinking his coffee, reading the newspaper. Well, I was trying to sneak out the door behind him, because I had that funny feeling. You ever get that feeling that your parents want to talk to you? You ever get that feeling? It's like, uh-oh, it's time for one of those talks. Well, I knew it was that kind of time, see? So I was kind of sneaking out the door like this. And he said, "Just a minute." And he turned around. And he said, "Do you see where you're at today?" I said, "Yeah, I see where I'm at today." And I know what he meant. A college dropout, $7,500 in debt, driving an old banged-up Pontiac, no job, no direction. He said, "That is where you will always be. You will never make it." But when he said that to me, I drew myself up. And I said, "Oh yeah?" Well, I said it to myself because my dad's 6'4". You saw him. But down inside, my young friends, all there was a burning desire. I said to myself, I will succeed. You don't have to show any signs of academic brilliance. You don't have to show any signs of social grace. You don't have to do anything right now but pay attention. Pay attention while you're in school. And have a burning desire. That will get you started. Young friends, it is not what is your IQ. It is what is your DQ, your desire quotient. Step number 2. Well, just so that know that you're following along with me. Everybody together, step number 1, we must have a burning desire. Everybody together, we must have a burning desire. Okay. Step number 2. We must set specific goals. A goal must be written and it must be reviewed on a regular basis. The goals need to be your goals. Remember we talked about earlier? Your single greatest power is the power to what?
Choose.
If you're going to have goals, who's going to choose them?
Yourself.
That's right. If you're going to be excited about it, it has to be your choice. It has to be your choice. And what are some of the areas we can set goals very quickly?
Here.
Where?
Here.
Here is where?
Church.
Church. Where else?
School.
School. Where else? Home. Where else? Where else can we set goals in our life?
Faith.
Yes, we sure we can. Family, and where else?
In the first man to reach the
In our health, right? Those are those 4 or 5 areas we can set specific goals. They need to be written down. They need to be your goals. They need to be measured in time and quantity. So an example of a goal in terms of grades would be, if you decided right now to improve your grades by the last semester, you take it from a C to a B, that would be the time, the quantity would be increased in the grade. Are they getting grades in these classes? Are they getting grades?
In the one that you're doing here?
Yes, no, not this class, but I'm talking about in school, they're getting A's and B's and C's.
A tab, yeah.
Outstanding. So, it's your decision. Your grades are no accident. Guess what? My income is no accident. Mr. Whitaker's income at General Motors Corporation as an engineer is no accident. These handsome incomes are no accident. By comparison to people who are picking up garbage, sweeping the streets, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're going to be a garbage person, a sanitation engineer, just be the best you can possibly be. But if you don't pay attention, if you don't set goals, if you don't have goals, such as to do well in school, maybe go on to college, then life will give you whatever happens to come along. And you will not participate in the choice. It will not be your choice. You'll just have to take what comes by. What are some of the goals that Mr. Tocco has that he works on every single day? Who remembers? What do I do every single day?
Give yourself a pep talk.
Every single day. Give myself a pep talk. What else?
Work out.
I work out, exercise, that's right. What else? Eat the right foods. What else? That's right. What else? Anything else? What else?
Eat a breakfast.
You betcha. What else? First thing in the morning. What's the first? Well, that's right. What's the first thing I do when I roll out of bed in the morning?
Think about what you're going to do.
That's right. Pray. Make the bed every day. Pray every morning. Exercise every day. Try to eat the right foods. Every single day. Every day. When I was 18, I set a goal to wear the same size suit all my life. To weigh about the same. I'm about 2 pounds more than I was when I graduated from Lincoln High School. But I still wear the same size suit. No, and this is not the same suit that I graduated in. We know about the importance of setting goals. And whose responsibility is it once we set a goal? Wait a minute. Whose responsibility is it? You mean to tell me if you set a goal to improve your grades, if you set a goal for better health, eat less junk food, if you set a goal to say no to drugs, what do we say to drugs? No. Everybody together? No. Thank you. Everybody together? No. Thank you. Absolutely no thank you. If we set a goal to get better grades, if we set a goal to help our parents at home, if we set a goal to pay closer attention to our teachers, whose responsibility is it? That's right. That is right. What great responsibility. What great responsibility. My congratulations to you. You are really getting it. You are really getting it. Goals, a very exciting part of life. Because what happens to us is very much in keeping with what we plan. With what we plan. Goals are so important that every year Mr. Tocco takes 3 to 4 days with Mike Wickett, and we leave town. We get out of town and we spend time in different cities around America and around the world. And where are some of the places we've been? Where are some of the places we've been to set goals? London, England?
Mexico?
No. Geneva, Switzerland? Salzburg, Austria? Munich, Germany? Montreal? New York? Just to set goals. Just to get out of town and get clear and review our past. Figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then plan for the things to come ahead. Those are the first 2 steps in our 5-step formula. Step number 1, we must have a burning. Everybody together with some feeling. You must have a burning desire. Step number 2, we must set goals. Specific goals. And step number 3, we must have an I can attitude. We must have faith in self. Faith in self, faith in God, and an I can attitude. This baseball was given to me in actually I bought this baseball in 1977 in November. And I bought this baseball because Hal Youngblood, who at the time was the producer of WJR Radio, called me. He said, Don, he said, you played baseball, didn't you? And I said, Hal, you know I played baseball. He said, how would you like to meet a world-famous baseball player? I said, who is it? He told me. I said, you're kidding me. He said, come on down to Studio D on Thursday. Matter of fact, that date was exactly November 4th, 1977, and you will meet. And he told me, I said, that's great. I said, I'll bring a couple of baseballs to be autographed. Would that be okay? He said, sure. So I walked in that morning, November 11th, 1977, and walked into Studio D. There he was, sitting by himself, and I walked over and I said, how do you do, sir? My name is Don Tocco. And I gave him a good firm handshake with him like we're going to do here. And I said, sir, would you mind autographing a couple of baseballs? And he said, no. And I gave him the names and he started autographing. Well, he was sitting right there. He was world famous. And I said to him, I said, would you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? He said, no. I said, how did you become a premier ball player? A famous ball player on the planet? I said, what characteristics did you develop as a young person? He said, like this. He said, well, I've always had an I can do it attitude. I said, oh, I've read about that. I said, was there anything else? He said, oh, yes. He said, when things got tough, and I got injured a couple of times, and I was about to give up, he says, that's when I asked God for help. He said, you know what? The 2 of us always got the job done together. And I will never forget, as long as I live, the words of baseball's home run king, Hank Aaron. Still today, the home run king. And he said, I always had an I can attitude. Faith in self and faith in God. We know about the importance of a positive attitude. Who will show us what a positive person looks like. Who knows what a positive person looks like when they're walking down the street? Who knows? I mean, somebody really positive. Show us what a really positive person looks like. Look at that. Look at that smile. Look at that smile. That's right. Shoulders back. Now, give her some appreciation. All right. Who knows what a grump looks like? I mean, a really negative person. I mean, somebody that's really, really negative person. Who knows? I mean, I see some hands that aren't up. Does everybody know? You know what a negative person looks like when they're walking down the street? Would you be able to spot one? Would you show us what they look like? Show us what a negative person looks like when they're walking down the street. I mean really negative. I mean, you can see it, you can spot it on their face. Look at it, head down, shoulders down. Oh yeah, let's give her some appreciation. That's right. Well, do we want to be known? We want to be known as an optimist or a pessimist. What's one of the signs of an optimistic person? One who is excited and enthused about life. What is the sign? They wear it on their face. What's it called?
A frown.
Oh, that's good. What is it on their face? An optimistic person who's really excited about life. We call it the value of a what? The value of a smile. Remember we talked that about a couple weeks ago? The value of a smile. Positive, optimistic, enthusiastic. It's our attitude. You take the last four letters of the word America, they are what? I can. This country was founded by people who said, I can, I want to, and I will. Do you think a person with a positive attitude is a person who is willing to try new things? Think so? You had a chance to write down some ideas a couple weeks ago. Teachers, they had some homework on some goals. Did they write some goals down? Okay. Those are new things. Many times those are new things. We talked about maybe being in a band, being on the safety patrol, joining one of the ball teams, spending a little more time in a library, participating in things that will help us expand and grow, give us more opportunity in our lives. Those are the first three steps in our success formula. How many would like to hear a joke? How many think it's time for a joke? Think so? All right, let's have a joke. Let's have at least one. I want to tell you this joke about having the right attitude. Having the right attitude in approaching things. There was a Texas oil man. Why, he was just filthy rich. I mean, he was loaded with money. And he was really getting up there in years. He was 90. He was 90. Get the picture, boy, his face was all gnarly and wrinkled. Being on that Texas sun day after day, out there watching his oil. Watching his oil coming out of the ground. He had a daughter. She was 70. And he wanted to get her married. She never been married. 70 years old. So what did he do? He invited all of the single bachelors in the Dallas area. Oh, but they were around 23, 28, 35 years of age. And they were having a great party while the lights are out there around the pool, and the pool was shimmering, and my gosh, the music was wonderful, and the food was delicious, and they were having a few drinks out there and everything. And all of a sudden, he went to the microphone. He said, "May I have your attention, please? This evening, gentlemen, there is going to be one very, very lucky man. And that lucky man is going to be a man who is going to be able to take the hand of my daughter." Well, now, here's all these young guys. And she's about 70, and they're all looking at each other. He said, "But it's not exactly going to be an easy thing." He said, "I'm going to have to see a man who has got the right kind of attitude. A man that really wants to be with my daughter." And they all looked at each other again. He said, "Fellas, I'd like you to look at the pool area." And they all looked at the pool. All of a sudden, they noticed down in the pool, there was a cage. And all of a sudden, he went over and he lifted the doors in that cage, and hundreds of flesh-eating piranhas came out of that cage and started filtering through the pool looking for something to eat. He said, "Now, the successful man that gets the hand of my daughter, all he has to do is swim across this pool." And boy, they all backed up a little bit. He said, but not only does he get the hand of my daughter, but he also gets half of my fortune. And you know, 1/2 of about $500 million ain't too bad. And they all moved a little closer to the edge of the pool. And they all looked down and saw those piranhas. And all of a sudden, at one of the pool, there was a splash. And everybody looked. And there surely was a man in it. And he was swimming, just swimming like crazy. He was barely touching the water. He was swimming so fast, like Mark Spitz winning a 7th gold medal. And he was out of the pool on the other side. Handsome young man. And the Texan ran around there and embraced him. He said, son, he said, you are a wonderful young man. He said, son, he said, I just wonder. He said, what do you want to know about my wonderful daughter? And the young Texan was all out of breath. He said, sir, he said, well, all I really want to know is who was the son of a gun that pushed me in? Yeah, sure. He wasn't all that excited about being here, was he? My young friends, it is not what is your IQ. It is not what is your intelligence quotient. Because I believe everyone in this room has got at least average or above average abilities. And I assure you, you can ask Mr. Whitaker back there if his friend Don Tocco had anything better than above average abilities, and I can assure you the answer is no. But an awful lot of faith in self, faith in God, and I can't attitude. Those are the first 3 steps in our 5-step formula, just so that I know you're following along. Step number 1, we must have a burning desire. Step number 2, we must set goals. Step number 3, we must have an faith in self and an I can attitude. Faith in self and God. Step number 4, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. We must keep on keeping on. What's the word? What's the word? The word starts with P. It is persistence. Everybody together. We must. We must have persistence. That is the activity of keeping on, keeping on. Now here's what keeping on means. It means you go home at the end of the day. You've been in school, you're a little bit tired. One of your friends calls you as soon as you get home, and she says, do you want to come out and play? And you go, well, you know, I do want to come out and play, but you know what, I've got some homework I need to do. And she says, oh, come on, let's go play. It'd be so much nicer. And it's nice outside, the flowers are coming up. We can take a walk down the street. And you say, oh, that really sounds good. But you know what? You see, I know that my future depends on it. By getting some information and knowledge and learning here in school. So I'm going to work on my homework for about a half an hour. And I'll call you back. And then we can go later. And after a half hour goes by and you realize you're not done yet, persistence means that you take another 10 minutes or 15 minutes and you go ahead and you finish what you started. And when you do something for your mom and dad, and you do something for your mom, and you get started on it, and you want to quit right in the middle because somebody calls you and wants you to go do something, you don't. You do the right thing is to finish. And you persist, and you keep on keeping on. And guess what? When you do that, you form what? By taking those actions, what do you form? You form a habit of completing things. Of doing things the right way the first time and getting them done. And therefore you then affect your, it begins with a D.
Desire.
Well, it begins with a D. It's the very first thing we talked about. Your destiny. Persistence is the activity of keeping on, keeping on. Everybody together? You got to keep on, keeping on. I'd like to share a story with you about a famous politician. His name was Sir Winston Churchill. He was the leader of Great Britain back in the 30s, 40s. And he was invited to Eton University to deliver a commencement address. And Sir Winston Churchill wore a black top hat, a cape. He had a cane because a little bit of a limp, had a little bad leg. And he smoked a stogie, which is really a terrible habit. He was a smoker. But if you can imagine graduation night for yourself, this was a prestigious university. Enter over here, Sir Winston Churchill, with his cane and his cape and his top hat. And he approached the microphone, and he looked at the entire graduating class, and here's what he said. He said, if you look right up here, he said, if you look right up here, you'll hear an incredible story. And he took off his top hat and his cape, and he set his stone down, and he walked to the microphone, and he delivered what was considered to be the most incredible speech ever given by Sir Winston Churchill. Here's what he said. He looked at the entire graduating class, every one of them in the eyes. And he said, never give up. And the second time he went to the microphone, he looked at every graduating student in the eyes, and he said, never give up. And the third time he went to the microphone, he looked at every graduating student in the eyes, and he said, never give up. And he took his top hat, his cape, and his cane, and his stogie, and he left. And it was said to be one of the all-time great speeches ever given by Sir Winston Churchill. Now, young friends, in the months and the years ahead, you're going to be confronted with many situations. And you can ask the adults in this room, teachers, my friends. There's going to be lots of opportunities where we stop, we give up, and find out a little bit later, like R.U. Darby. Remember R.U. Darby who dug for gold? How close did he come to gold?
3 feet.
3 feet? And then he gave up. He stopped. That's exactly right. The junk man who bought the equipment dug 3 more feet and hit the Comstock load, and he became a multi-millionaire because he was willing to go just a little bit farther. We've got to persist. We've got to keep on keeping on. Those are the first 4 steps in our 5-step formula. Just so I know you're following along. Step number 1 is to have a
Burning desire.
but with some feeling. Here we go. It's to have a
Burning desire.
we must set.
Goal.
Step number 3, we must have
Faith in yourself, faith in God.
and an I can attitude. And step number 4, we
Persistence.
must. Persistencia. In Mexico, they say persistencia. Persistencia, persistence. And step number 5, we must learn how to take courageous action. 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 You all saw this rock last week. I brought it last week, but well, some of you saw it, but I never got a chance to tell the story of this rock. And it's a great story about taking courageous action. Because the fact is, in life, what keeps most people back is fear. There are many, many different kinds of fear. But probably the most powerful fear is the fear of embarrassment. Probably the most powerful fear is the fear of embarrassment. As an example, if I were to ask one of you to come up in front right now, maybe I could. Would you want to come up in front? Would you be eager to do that? Well, see, now that's very good. Let's give her some appreciation. I'm not going to ask her to do that. That's very good. She was going to jump right up there and come up in front. See, but if I were to ask you to come up in front and just talk about 3 minutes on everything we talked about today, see, a lot of people would not want to do that. You see, it's not a fear of speaking. It's the fear of what we might say that might embarrass ourselves. If I were to ask Mrs. Tutag, if I were to ask my friend Don to come up, or if I would ask the librarian or anyone here in the room to come up for about 3 minutes and just share with us what we've talked about, the old heart starts to beat a little faster, doesn't it? Because the greatest fear is the fear of personal embarrassment. That is why peer pressure is so important. When one of your friends is smoking, and there's about 5 people around, and they pass the cigarette to you, the reason many people don't say no is they want to fit in. They don't want to be different. They don't want to feel embarrassed. But because you are young leaders, and you know about these things, you will be able to say no, thank you to these kind of things. Let me tell you about this rock. I was 25 years old. How many thought that was maybe a year or 2 ago? Thank you very much. Thank you. I was 25 years old, and I just got a job with Mr. John Davis of Davis Painters. And John said to me, he said, Don, he said, I want you to represent my company. He said, what I would like you to do is I would like you to just simply read off of this page, and you'll be able to call people on the phone and get them excited about our product and sell our product and make a commission. Well, I thought it sounded pretty easy. Well, I took the piece of paper and I went to the telephone and I sat down. But you know, I sat there for probably 15 minutes. It was in the summertime. It was very hot, Martin. I was perspiring. I was using an office without an air conditioner. In fact, that same office that I started in had no heat in the wintertime. I sat there for 15 minutes and I was afraid to pick up the telephone because I was afraid of rejection. I was afraid of rejection. Rejection is when you, Mark, go to another school and you don't know anybody and you like to meet somebody because you like to play, but you don't. You don't say anything to anybody. You sit there by yourself because you don't want to be rejected by people. It's another fear. And last week we talked about false fears and real fears. This, my friends, my young friends, is a false fear. Because people are not going to hurt you. If you are pleasant and open and honest and warm with them, they're going to accept you. There is nothing to be afraid of. We just need to learn that we are capable of doing these things. Anyway, I was afraid to pick up the telephone and call a customer to try to set up an appointment. And underneath some papers was this rock. And I pulled it out from underneath the papers and I put it to my face just like I'm doing now. And it was cold. And I looked at the rock and I thought, this rock must be maybe 100,000 years old. I mean, I don't know how long it takes to make rocks, but it takes quite a long time for them to compress down into something like this. And then I thought to myself, you know, the truth is, in just 100 years, I'm going to be making rocks with my body. I'm going to be in the dirt making rocks with my body. So today, if there's something I want to do, and I hesitate to do it because I'm afraid, I'm only wasting valuable time. Because I'm not going to be on this planet for 100,000 years, or a million years. I'm going to be only on this planet for a mere 75 years, or 65, or 84, whenever God decides that my time is up. So I said, if I'm going to do anything, I've got to do it now. I've got to overcome my fear and go into action now. So when is the time to go into action, my young friends? Now. Now is the time you reach out to other people and you say, hi, my name is, and you introduce yourself. Now is the time to raise your hand and say to the teacher, I'm sorry, I don't understand that question. Could you answer that question? Or could I come in after class and you can explain it to me? Now is the time to set your goals. Now is the time to start thinking about your future. Now is the time to listen. Now is the time to think. Now is the time to dream. This rock I held in my hand, realizing that I wasn't going to live forever. I picked up the telephone. I got Jim Castle on the line from High Grade Food Products. Apparently I said the right things because he was willing to set up a meeting with me. Over the next 2.5 years, we sold $250 million, I'm sorry, that's a little bit, we sold $250,000 worth of product to him, which enabled me to get that old Pontiac I told you about fixed. And we went on to sell over $250 million worth of construction over the next few years. So, courageous action begins with the reality, with the knowledge that courage is something that we can develop. by using it. So my young friends, here's what I'd like you to remember. The next time you feel like you're afraid to do something, I want you to say to yourself, aha, I'm feeling afraid right now. Thank God, this is a great opportunity. This is a chance for me to be courageous. Because there's no chance for courage where there's no fear. And then go into action right then and there on the thing that's troubling you. That you're afraid to do, jump right in and go forward. And you will have taken courageous action, 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 which is the only thing that overcomes the disabling factor of fear. Remember the mask from last week, the Dracula mask? It's scary looking, but that's all it is scary looking. There's nothing behind it but a friendly face. There's many wonderful and great opportunities in your life behind the fear that's stopping you from going forward. We must take positive risks. We must take positive risks. Remember when Mr. Tocco told you about the Christmas card sales?
Yeah.
Last week? And I went to that first door and I was so afraid to go to that first door. And what happened at the first door? Who remembers? Did they say yes or no?
No.
They said no. But I kept going to those doors and I kept asking.
Next house.
The next house, yes. And the next few houses, no. In life, it seems like we always get more no's than yeses. But if we keep taking the courageous action, see, people do not reject the performer. People do not reject you. They reject the performance. It's the performance they reject, which means we can improve and get better and better. Those are the 5 steps in our success formula. Those are the only 5 steps you ever have to learn. Your destiny equals your choice times using those 5 principles. Gaining the knowledge, loving God, yourself, and other people, and serving people. That is your success formula. I'd like you to remember that behind closed doors, look over here. Behind closed doors, many stand and wait impatiently, hoping someone will lend a hand by giving them a key. But finally, in disillusionment, they leave. Never having knocked, live and die and never know that the door was never locked. You have no limitations. The sky is endless. Your destiny is endless. It's based on your willingness to try, to believe in yourself and God, and to use the principles. Let's never forget it. There's only one thing left for us to do. Let's go out and make it happen. That's it. That is it. You will all be getting a success formula. So everything we talked about the last 6 weeks will be in this booklet. Has room for notes. It says right here, burning desire, specific goals, faith, persistence, taking courageous action. There are stories in here about it. There's a list of fantastic books in here. I highly recommend that you get. You get a little older and read them. Tocco's picture on the back. So I'm going to be looking for your faces. I'm going to be listening for what happens. We'll be checking with Mr. Kubicki and your teachers. And maybe this May we're going to have a reunion of all the 4th grade classes we've done over the last 4 years. How would you like that? How would you like to meet some of the other 4th graders from some of the other schools that have been through the same program? Wouldn't that be fun? In one big room, about 400 or 500 kids? You all have your own hats, your red hat. What color is your blue hat with the gold letters on it? Harding Bulldogs, T-shirts. Would that be great? How'd you like to meet Mr. Joe Girard? Would that be something? Mr. Joe Girard might be there. Some other great speakers. We're going to do it this May. Well, you've been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure working with you. I expect great things from you. I love you. God bless you. Ooh, notes. All right.
You're in
Notes.
class here. Let's give
Yep.
this man a hand.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Tocco.
Yes.
I have to explain it to you because it's
Well, let's go
modern
up here
art.
so we can go right up. If it's
Oh,
modern art,
It's modern art.
well, that is pretty sharp. It's modern art.
We have practice each day, not every day, but most days. The mirror, the person,
Yeah.
I feel good, and I'm big, I'm strong.
I
So
love it.
that's to you.
Thank you.
Us and just
Wonderful. Thank you very,
Give
very
a
much.
hand.
Thank you. The guy in the glass, and I'm big, I'm strong. How many would like to do the warm-up on big, I'm strong? Let's stand up. Here we go. Here we go. Really do it good now. I'm big. I'm strong. I'm king of the beast. You guys do the greatest. Let's shake hands now. Thank you for your gifts. Well, let's see. Should we get a picture of everybody? Let's get a picture of everybody.